Thank you, Business World, Anurag, Devika and the team for creating this great platform. I was a part of the jury and we enjoyed every bit of the process. We had some great entries. Interacted with some talented business leaders. And now thanks for getting us into the panel. I'm really, really humbled to be amongst a very, very accomplished and distinguished panel here, all of you. And we've been interacting over the last couple of days with this great panel. So I was wondering, why am I here with such a great panel? So before we start the the core discussion of the MSc segment, just wanted to give a quick perspective on the kind of transformational changes that are happening in the space that we're living in today. In fact, there's a conversation that I will kind of... In a conversation recently, Mr. Nandan Nilekani actually said that India is actually making irreversible non-linear changes. So Nandan Nilekani talks about a beautiful thing called the combinatorial invention, combinatorial innovation. So he's talking about the various digital public goods that were created. When they're interacting with each other, they're actually creating many more market segments. And so this thing that we have to realize that we're actually, India's economy, we are moving from a cash, low productivity kind of economy to a cashless, digital, high productivity kind of economy. And the genesis of this actually started, all of us discussed, a lot of discussions happened today with the Jam Trinity, which was the Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobility. So today we have almost 50 crores Jandhan accounts. We have almost 1.3 crores Aadhaar, and Aadhaar authentications every day today is about 80 million, which is whopping amount. And what also happened was the next big moment, I think all of you would agree, was the UPI moment. When UPI actually came, it actually transformed the way we're doing business. It's transformed the way we're living our lives, because we can travel in the country today without carrying anything in the wallet with just one mobile phone. And another very interesting piece of statistics Mr. Nandan Nilekani's conversation has, he says that in 60 years we actually reached 5 lakh POS. And in 3 years, we actually reached 60 million QR codes. Which is a humongous testimony to the fact the kind of move the digital economy has made. And obviously the next step was the Aadhaar movement. Aadhaar actually formalized the Indian economy and in a big way. And today, actually, we are now sitting on a great cusp. We are sitting on a cusp before the next big UPI moment. Can anybody talk about the next big UPI moment? What do you think is the next big UPI moment? What is the next big evolution that's going to happen? The country. One big thing, in fact, one hint is what just the presentation that we had just before this. ONDC. So ONDC and the account aggregator network is being built as the next UPI. I think it's going to change our lives once again in many, many different ways. However, having said that, there are challenges. Today, I think there's a $17.4 trillion credit gap. That's a huge gap. About 11 lakh people don't have access to credit, and the NPA is about 12%. So there are a lot of journey to cover. So having said that, now we'll open up our discussions to the great distinguished panel. Panel members, we'll start the discussion today by talking about the challenges and the opportunities that faces the MSME industry. In your experience, if you can take one challenge, one big challenge, and one big opportunity. Mr. Gadia, start with you first.
Thank you, Arijit. Thank you, Business World, for giving me this opportunity of coming and presenting my thoughts in front of you. Just to make the word clear that MSME, after this change in definition, they constitute around 99% of the Indian corporate. So please try and understand this. MSME is basically the entire corporate sector which we are talking about. MSME बोलने से हमें लगता है कि कुछ इस तरह की कंपनी होगी, कुछ बड़ी कंपनी होगी, तो please don't differentiate that way. If we are using the word MSME, we are using 99% of the Indian corporate voices and Indian corporate issues after the change in definition of 250 crore of turnover definition which has come into it. So this is one thing. Now regarding the credit gap which you have rightly pointed out, I run an investment banking company called Resurgent India Limited, in which there is only one thing that we do, that we help companies in raising money. So we act as an intermediary between the financial institutions who are giving the money and the corporates who are looking for funding. So during the course of my business, I am actually looking at both sides of the table. Ki what is this side interest, what is this side problem area, and what is the language barrier between these two? Why both the things are not marrying together and or it is creating a music together? What I understand is that there is a lot of trust deficit between the two sides of the table. And how we can just try and see that how this trust deficit can go down, this is, I think, so this is where the challenge lies. Whether technology can solve this issue, as Arijit has pointed out, whether it is an account aggregator, whether it is an ONDC platform. Basically, what we are trying to solve the problem area is basically the trust deficit problem area between the two parties. Because maybe maybe for the purpose and the ease of documentation, purpose and ease of thing that can come out with. Now in terms of technology in the MSME, the next big move, the problem area that I will try to come out, up to 5 crore of loan, I think so maximum thing has been automated right now. From the client coming onboarding till the disbursement, everything is automated. And we run a fintech platform called scoreme.in, where approximately around 1,000 applications are being processed on a daily basis, where the MSME comes online and the loan is being processed, and this platform is being used by another 150 banks and NBFC which are using this platform as a backend to process the loan for the NBFCs, for all the banks and NBFCs for giving loan to MSME. What I could understand, this 100 or 1,200 application forms which are successfully generated, out of the 2,000 or 3,000 application forms which the MSMEs are applying, out of which only 50 or 60% are getting digitally processed. Problem that we then wanted to analyze, ki if there are 3,000 people applying for a loan, why only 1,200 or some 40-60% of the people are getting loan? Sir, you will be surprised. Approximately, if I analyze the problem in 3 bigger areas, problem areas while giving a digital loan is this: ki digitally I have to match all the records. I have to match your passport, your Aadhaar, your Rasan, your address verification, everything I need to match. In India, it is highly difficult कि सर आपकी जो date of birth है सर वो हर document में एक लिखी हो. सर इट इज़ हाईली इम्पॉसिबल कि सर आपने जो एड्रेस लिख रखा वो सारे डॉक्यूमेंट के अंदर में एक ही तरीके से लिख के आ रहा हो सर. So now these 4 or 5 documents that need to be matched, authentically matching, which has to be done by a software and where every parameters need to be matched that way. This is where, sir, same thing with your wife names, it can be maiden names, it can be that name. So these are some of the technical issues which we already face in terms of address. Sir, you might have given your address in your school days. Your father might have changed the address that might be used as your passport. Now you are living, you are doing some own businesses. You have shifted place 10 years after. You might be shifted to a rented place. So you might have, आपने कुछ local address verification के लिए, you have made some local documents here. This is where one of the problem areas in terms of consistency of the address documentation, this is one of the problem areas that we face. Secondly, in all the MSME loan requirement, it is based on whenever you talk to a loan for an MSME, they will all talk about ki I will do this, I will make money that time and then I will be able to make profit and then I will be able to repay the loan. It means he is talking all futuristic. But banks and NBFCs, they are evaluating him on to his past performance. कि अभी तक आपने last 3 साल में कितना कमाया है. If you talk to an MSME, what he will say कि sir, I will earn this much amount of money. If I am given this much amount of a loan. So whatever the future projections that you are taking to all the financial institutions, they are evaluating you on to your past performance, and MSME is talking the language of a future performance. So this past and future performance gap also need to be plugged in, how we can be able to communicate this communication gap in terms of this. thirdly, this MSME and the banker, they need to understand one language, that if you require 100 rupees of loan, for 100 rupees of loan, how much should be the risk capital and how much is risk-free capital. Banks are only going to fund you the risk-free capital, not the risky capital. So how much is that risky capital and how much is the risk-free capital? That MSME's understanding and the bank's understanding, that never come in one conclusion or one tandem. MSME sees that 100 rupees that he is investing in a business, it is 100% risk-free. Banks think that 100% money that company is asking, it is 100% risky. So how will you bridge this gap of that whatever MSME thinks ki mera paisa pura risk-free hai, whatever money I am investing, to sir, I will invest in this factory, I will earn this, I will get this work order. Banker will start ki sir, first of all, you will not get a land, you will not get work order, you will not get plant and machinery, you will not get payment in time. He will ask hundreds of other questions, and MSME doesn't even think this is as a problem. So sorry, these are the three problem areas. I think so if we can solve it out.
So, no problem. One challenge, one problem.
Sure. So one challenge and one opportunity. Sure. I'll start with the opportunity. I think one of the biggest opportunities that the MSME sector has seen, taken advantage of, and can probably do more has been e-commerce in the country. I think e-commerce has fueled growth for MSME in multiple ways. One is by obviously providing them with a certain amount of market access that they didn't have before, which I think is huge. Second is its market access in terms of not just domestically, but you do have a lot of them now who are able to cater to consumers outside of the country. So there's a lot of cross-border that's taking place. This is helping MSMEs grow because it's also helping them in terms of digital adoption and the kind of hand-holding that goes with that. But what is also happening as an opportunity is, if you look at numbers, the total number of MSMEs who are actually enrolled on e-commerce platforms or who sell is still a very small percentage, maybe about 2 to 5% if I remember last of the entire MSME corpus that exists in the country. And as Sir was mentioning, if it's 99%, we know how big these are. So therefore, that's where the opportunity is. The gains for most MSME businesses are very clear because of e-commerce. I think that's been documented, spoken about. And I think this is the opportunity that most other MSMEs need to take advantage of and step in. So that's your opportunity. The challenge I think that they will have, and I'm looking a little into the future, is now the new buzzword, which is your ESG, which is environment, social, and governance principles, as they were. It's not a requirement for MSMEs today. It's barely a requirement for most listed companies, which are your typically blue chip and incredibly large ones. However, given how companies progress, given how they grow, this will eventually trickle down and will become effective, and there will be implications for every kind of business that exists in the country. Capacity building is when we start looking at what would be the next challenge and start today instead of waiting for it to be enforced and then kind of not be able to cope with the changes and cope with the pressure. So I think the ESG challenge will be big, because it's not just, and this kind of covers everything in terms of capacity building for themselves, whether they need to build businesses which are environmentally more conscious, or at least doing what they need to compensate for any kind of environmental disservice that they may be doing because of the virtue of sector that they work in, whether it's in terms of social agenda that they have, whether it's in terms of labor benefits that they offer, or whether it's in terms of women, whether it's in terms of their CSR activities, all of that. And last, governance, which has a very, very huge ramification in terms of everything else, including funding. The previous sessions were talking a lot about MSME listings and why they don't happen. We, in my erstwhile position with another think tank, we did a couple of seminars around why MSME listing, though successful, hasn't really burgeoned as it was expected. A lot of it has to do with governance issues. Because if your books aren't kept a certain way, if they're not managed a certain way, if your basic corporate governance isn't in place the way it's supposed to, then listing becomes difficult. My apologies. It was on silent. But that's the issue. So therefore, ESG I see as the next big challenge. And I think that's what MSMEs need to kind of work towards.
Thank you. Let me make it very simple. From my experience of having dealt with the MSME sector as a lender, I face, and having interacted with some of them, I think in spite of whatever has been done, and whatever is being done, I'm first talking about the challenge, I still find there is a lack of much awareness. And I think that itself is a challenge today. Perhaps I see somewhere there seems to be an overcrowding in terms of the offerings. So I think the poor man gets confused, ki kya karu? So I think the real awareness needs to be created as to what is the right way to go ahead, which is the right channel to seek credit, which is the right channel to go for have any, meet his capex requirement. So I think I will put awareness, lack of awareness as the biggest challenge today. And opportunity, if you ask me, connected. Opportunity is, I think the biggest opportunity today is that the government of the day is perhaps talking MSME, MSME and only MSME, if you ask me. So you look at the sector that's been open, even a sector like defense has been open to MSMEs. So I think that itself is an opportunity, but again, to cash to that opportunity, I go back to the challenge that awareness is required. So if we can create that, I think a lot has been done. Whatever, lack of trust, somebody mentioned, there is enough guarantee products also being created, but how much is the awareness there? So similarly, ma'am talked about e-commerce, that's an opportunity. And again, that's an opportunity, whether it's ONDC, whether it's OCAN, the government is providing that. So if awareness is there, I think that is a challenge. And once that awareness becomes a tool and you are aware of it, then itself it's a big opportunity.
Thank you so much. Okay, challenge and opportunity, right? Even before we say it, what is the challenge that comes into your mind for MSME? Funds. Opportunity, well, there are too many, and just as Ramanji said, that yes, information which is already crowded and not really well matched, being an opportunity doesn't really help the challenge. So where are we? We heard Kulbhushan ji talk about debt equity funding, and essentially that's what MSMEs need, because it's the promise of future that we deliver, and that's exactly where our strengths lie. We have been a part of an initiative of National Stock Exchange. It's called the Social Stock Exchange. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. This allows an MSME who's into a for-profit enterprise list itself and raise funds in a completely a different way, right? How is this different? Why is this different? Just as he said, where is the information? Is it really matched? Well, this is what platforms like ours do. We create think tanks. We had the think tanks few weeks back, wherein we picked up the tracking government funding for MSME. We were grateful to have Dr. Yadav on our panel, and we had an MSME who had cracked it. Right, he went and he got that government funding, so he could come up and speak about the bottleneck and also shared how to troubleshoot them. That's exactly what we need. We get, by mid-September, we are getting around 200-250 SSGs, whom we are going to have a session with at National Stock Exchange about the Social Stock Exchange. So we are targeting the exact audience, targeting the exact problem, and the person who has already seen through that entire challenge. That's the kind of opportunity we are trying to create. Have we created it enough? Well, a lot of feedback, yes, we received. It did help. It is creating a lot of results, but is that enough? Well, that's exactly what Devika and her team is doing. And I hope that with this kind of an open forum discussion, we will be able to connect a lot more to the exact person who's seeking the information and the one who has already used it. So that's the challenge and the opportunity as I see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nabomita. I think, a lot of the panelists have addressed a lot of challenges. I think funds is a common one. Being a part of a startup, I can say that, I can draw parallelism in terms of funding, resources. And I think one of the biggest challenge today, I would say, is an opportunity would be technology and talent. Because I think we have a lot of technological advancement today that we were talking about. Arijit just spoke about UPI. One of the very, interesting incidents I had, I was talking to a global, chief technology officer who's based in the US. has to happen to have his roots in the south, so he comes down and he wants to have neer, right? You know, the coconut thing. He comes down and he immediately tries to take out his cash, and the guy says, no, you know what? Just, scan the barcode and you can pay me. He was so shocked because he was like, this is not happening in the US itself. So definitely India, in terms of advancement, we are there. But we have the talent, we have the resources, but it's actually meshing them together and putting them to use. I think that's the common, I would say, issue that is facing both with startups and with MSMEs. I think there was a debate in the last panel where they were talking about the difference between a startup and an MSME. I think there are a lot of things that are common. There are a lot of when you go, an MSME today has a lot of options that the Prime Minister's schemes are offering to them. The startup has to go prove their idea, prove that that idea really works. Just to give a little small example, ETF Junction is trying to create an ecosystem for investors who are still not aware about the scope and the opportunities that the space have, and get manufacturers and everybody together to be able to create that awareness. I think somebody spoke about awareness as well. I think that is both a challenge and an opportunity, because what becomes a challenge in terms of awareness is an opportunity in terms of providing that education. So I think these are different kind of models that one can use, and you can use the challenges and opportunities in tandem to kind of create a cohesive way to work and make them work together.
Thank you. So Gadia, this question to you. We've been having some conversations with some friends in Pune and various business houses. An interesting perspective came. Somebody said that all the SMEs, a lot of the middle rung and the small rung players go through a typical middle of the rung, middle class kind of a problem, where you go through the grind, and after a certain point of time, you don't have the broader vision to kind of take the next step. So, I want to grow big, but I don't have that, either the risk appetite, or I don't have that gumption to really kind of, push, pull the strings and do something, or sometimes I'm afraid. So what do you think is the issue with,
I'll just relate to one of my problems, and then I was doing a job after completion of my studies, and then I was pretty doing well, and then after 6-7 years, I decided that I should start my own farm. I called up my mother and I told Mama, I want to start my own. So as Mama was typically telling me, ki, Jyoti, you are doing good, why do you want to start? So I only told her ki there are two things. In case now I am working for 8 hours a day, if I work for 24 hours a day, then God will not be so much cruel to me कि वो 24 घंटे मेहनत करने से 8 घंटे का भी फल नहीं देगा. और plus I didn't wanted to die with a regret कि मैंने अपनी कोशिश नहीं करी. So these were the 2 points that pushed me for this entrepreneurial journey. But when you get into that entrepreneurial journey, at the starting phase of your life, you are absolutely sure of that I will meet with an accident, I don't know what will happen and everything. After 4-5 years down the road, when everything is settled, you have got 10-20 employees on board, you have got some sort of a cash flow coming in, that's where your risk appetite starts decreasing at that point of time, because then you start thinking, ki, sir, at the present moment, because when I'm starting from footpath, I'm starting from day zero. Because are we ready that from like हम लोग जब सांप से सीढ़ी का खेल खेलते हैं तो from 99 are we ready to come back to the zero or not? So are we ready for that सांप से सीढ़ी का game in that business or not? That's where the challenge lies. I think so. That's where the mindset issue. And I tell you, I also face this issue as an entrepreneur, sir. For me, the unlearning has to be done in case my consulting firm went from 1 crore to, from 0 to 1 crore, then 1 crore to 10 crore, then 10 to 25, then 25 to 50. Entire unlearning is different, sir. Entire unlearning is different in terms of that I need to hire people after 5 years whom I am now the 8th highest paid employee in my company. So that's the mindset shift that I needed to organize in myself, that there will be 7 other people who are drawing more salaries than me, who have got more power than me in the same company which I have created. So that ownership structure different, I think so it's all mindset issue, how will you start changing that. given this, पहले तो उनको entrepreneurship के लिए, and this second, the problem area is that in India, there is no second chance given to an entrepreneur. The fear of failure in terms of the entire ecosystem in India, for an ecosystem, it has been designed that you have to always pass your examination and this examination comes daily. You take one decision which is going to impact your entire year profitability. You are taking a purchase decision, you are taking a sales decision, you are taking one decision, जो एक decision में आपके पूरे साल की profitability erode करेगी, and second decision wrong, you are at loss. And there is no backup, because in our ecosystem, we are going to back up a BCom graduate guys who has come freshly, and there are a lot of startup funds will come and back him up. But for a failed entrepreneur, sir, unfortunately, we don't have anything which will strong enough to support him, which will give him a second chance in his life. These are the two problem areas, sir.
Thank you. That's a very important point. The fear of failure is a very important point. Mr. Aggarwal, this question is to you. I know awareness, you talked about awareness being an issue. I think we all know that awareness is a big issue. But sometimes what happens is that, there was a conversation that I was having recently with somebody in Pune. Strangely found out about 4 or 5 people in the vicinity of 75 to 300 crore businesses. They said that, we don't go to the government-run schemes. First of all, sometimes it's difficult. And we prefer going to banks. And he mentioned to me that if you look at the kind of friends I have in Pune, a lot of people actually don't have that, they prefer going to banks. But the attitude will be slightly different in northern India or say Nasik. They're far more tuned to looking at different avenues. Yeah. So do you think there are these regional nuances that are important?
I think it's not really the regional nuances, but I'll rephrase it. I think, pardon me saying this, but I find the younger generation suffering from this dilemma of a lot of peer pressure. Now let me put things straight. At the cost of sounding conservative, I mean, does everybody need to be an Ambani or Adani today? Correct. So I think the dilemma comes there. You talked about that middle-age crisis or the mid-level crisis, because then the thought process comes, I have to grow that big. Okay, I mean, if you're running a fair enough enterprise, making profits, growing, I'm talking of that typical old Hindu rate of 5, 7, 10%, fine. Go ahead, do it, and continue doing it, make profits. The dilemma real comes because you are in that race to make that quantum jump. Everybody wants to make that quantum jump. And that is where often you see failures happening. And when those failures happen, as Mr. Gadia talked about, when you are at 99 and you're stung, and you come straight down to 8 or 9 or 0, that where things go really, what happened. So I think it's more of the psyche game of everybody trying to take that quantum jump. And these words sound fine. I mean, these are inspiring words, unicorn. But I mean, let's not put this that, okay, sabko unicorn hi banna hai. Like everybody, sabko 99.99% hi nahi lana exams mein. So it's that rat race we need to stop. I think let's be happy doing a good, fair enough entity.
Let's have a vision and just move forward.
And ma'am talked about ESG. Why do you think such concepts are being brought in? Yeah. Let's not pure run after numbers, maths, financials. Look at what social objectives, what service you're doing, how many people you're employing, what you're doing to the environment, what you're doing to the nation.
Correct.
And we are seeing examples. What happened yesterday was, all those government school children, government school pass-outs, local college pass-outs, look what they have done wonders for the country. So let's not think that big.
Correct.
Let's be grounded.
Very, very interesting point. Nirupama, you've been working with the policy think tank and working with policy frameworks. And you also have had experience in working with the gems and jewelry segment, the retail segment. So do you also notice any distinctive regional nuances? For instance, we were seeing that Punjab is having a lot of delinquencies. Is there any particular region or cultural nuances that come into play as far as mindsets and attitudes are concerned?
See, I don't think it's regional as much as it's probably cultural and how business is being done. So, for example, traditionally there are certain sectors which probably operate using cash a lot more because of their business model. And I say operate cash, I don't mean black money. I just mean the business, the transactions happen more using cash than maybe using any other means. It's just the nature of business. It's probably a way in which they account for their cash flows and how they account for the transactions. So to that end, you will see a certain kind of difference. Second, you will have businesses which are typically family run, and this is not just related, restricted to MSMEs. If you look at family run businesses historically, unless you move away from pure family led business to a more professional approach, where you diversify your board, you get people who are experts on board, you will see typically family run businesses very rarely last beyond the second or the third generation. This is the second bit. So typically what have been family run businesses, and in the micro, small and medium sector, you will have an abundance of these because it is what has happened through generation, through generation, through generation. So to move, as I think what Sir was also saying very rightly, to move out of that bent of mind into something else. This again, as I said, is more cultural than it is regional in that sense. But I'll tell you where regional will make a difference. And I think regional has a lot to do with the general state of social indicators and economic indicators. It's very simple. I mean, where you have higher financial literacy and where you have higher financial inclusion, the propensity of those business people, whichever size and for any individual, to access financial products will be easier. They're probably better organized, and therefore their access to credit is easier. So it's probably these kind, where social taboos are not as much as in other states, you will see the entrepreneurial spirit probably better off. These are cultural, and to that extent where cultural differences lie, you may see some kind of difference as far as states are concerned. I don't think it's anything else.
Sure. Also, I think what comes into play is traditional business communities, for instance. There are certain communities, let's say in Calcutta, the Marwaris or the Gujaratis in Gujarat, they are far more kind of amenable and kind of conducive to business ideas. And
look, that as I said, I think each of us call it your good genes that come from traditional. From your ancestors. Call it what you want. It's the typical mindset where you'll see people in America say that Chinese and Indians do their math and science better than the rest. It's basically all that. Now, whether you want to get into the scientific credence of that statement or not, what I would at least say is, if you are born into a family that's been doing business for generations, you're surrounded by people
Correct.
who have been doing that.
Absolutely.
You've grown up in
Absolutely.
that kind of milieu.
Absolutely.
It is only natural that you would pick that up since childhood, and you would probably be better at it than being pushed into something else or opting for something else where your exposure is limited.
Correct.
It's just that.
where business runs in the family. Yeah. You value that. Correct.
So I think it's just that more than whether
Correct.
it is genetic or it's predisposition.
Correct.
I think it's just that you grow up in a certain kind of way. Your propensity to pick those skills up is a lot higher, and it sticks to you faster than
Sure.
anything else that is there.
Sure. Nabomita, you've been working once again with the grassroots level, doing a lot of audits to kind of check whether the policy frameworks that have been formulated, they reach the ground level. What is your understanding, what is your evaluation of this whole thing, of the various things that have been planned by the government? Are they reaching the right kind of people? So what is your experience?
Okay,
And
thank
what
you.
should be what do you think should be the approach of government and lenders to do something proactively? See, it's not enough when we say that there's lack of awareness or the schemes are not going to the people. But it's also, if you look at it from the other perspective, what can the lenders do proactively to kind of facilitate this match?
Okay. Interestingly, thank you so much. I was thinking about the question that you asked them. And yes, my answer to your question to me will still remain the same. He asked the question about the regional part and why the MSME. I'm going back to the last question because that will connect to what he asked me. Why MSME can't think big? Okay. To say it, we all have heard about the Kolhapur model, right? One city full of MSMEs supporting each other, such a strong economy that COVID couldn't break them, downturn couldn't break them, nothing can test a Kolhapur economy. What is running them? Yes, the culture within the region, the the system of buying from each other. During COVID, we suddenly had, I'm sure in your platforms you must have seen, suddenly businesses were taking services from each other, right? At a cost that they can afford, at a cost that will keep the service provider running. Suddenly there was a different kind of culture for a while, and then again, it had been receding, but we had seen it, right? Irrespective of region, irrespective of reach. If we can consistently build that at a much larger scale, the vision that Arijit talked about, I think any MSME can reach. Even now, when I'm working with all the MSME in their requirements, matching them up, right? All we do is connect, and that's exactly how they grow. Now, are these MSME limited in terms of the vision? No. Yes, there had been a challenge in terms of the question that he asked me. The information is not reaching, and putting up an awareness excuse is not enough. How can the lenders also have a support into this? Again, going back to the Kolhapur model, how is the lending working there? How is the economy system working there? Are there just, I'm just going to ask the question. I'm not going to answer because you as a business owner probably have researched a lot more than the Kolhapur model than me. I live in Maharashtra, so I'm talking about it. I'm sure there are similar kind of business pockets with similar systems, not too talked about, not too well discovered, but yes, they are still functioning. My question to you will remain, can we map it and at a much larger scale? What we did during COVID, because of a sudden pressure on us, can we continue at a longer duration? Yes, as a platform, we are making effort, but that is just limited to one platform. Going back to his point, what can we do to essentially make sure that the lender is also at a profit by lending into the business? Yes, we need all these financial institutions. We need newer functions of money lending, which is why I spoke about social stock exchange. I'm grateful our organization is a partner to collaboration in its collaboration for think tank to Bombay Stock Exchange SME chambers. Now, all these areas we definitely need, all this information, even you can get it at a drop of a hat from the internet. But what will exactly stop you from listing there? Why will your company get rejected? If somebody brings that information to you, probably only then you can call it functional. When that functional information is generated, the lender who's going to lend you the money, you're saving that person's time. Rather than taking 10 companies, while listening to, obviously, while listening to Jyoti, while listening to Kulbhushan, there were so many companies that are running into my mind that, fine, I should connect them to them. But then, until and unless it's a thorough due diligence done, am I really justifying that time? How are they going to benefit out of the entire situation? Yes, Arijit asked me a question, and I'm asking lot many more to you, because as a business owner, you have lot more answers than I can provide.
Thank you. Koel, just wanted to ask you, in your experience of working in the financial sector, once again, how do you kind of correlate this awareness issue, and how do you deal with the awareness-related barrier? If you can bring in a different agency, not a typically MSME answer, but your experience in working with the financial sector, how do you deal with a awareness-related barrier?
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very relevant question. I would maybe, if I asked for a show of hands, and I would find a lot of people here who manage their own finances today here. Are you managing your own financial planning? Do you regularly have a disciplined way of investing? Or are you guys asking any of your financial planners to be helping you with your investments? I will not kind of actually ask for a raise of hands, but you'll be surprised, Arijit. Maybe more than 50% of the kind of audience here may not be doing it, right? Maybe some of them are doing religiously. I was a part of a joint venture with S&P and BSE, a lot of my, colleagues, not I wouldn't say from colleagues from the industry, some of the professionals I've dealt with could be doctors, engineers, people who may not be from a financial background, used to come and ask me, Koel, give me a stock tip. It was never helped me understand how can I, manage my finances, how can I balance out that after my salary and after I pay off my loans, what do I do with my balances? I think that's a very, very big, challenge today, that what you call as financial awareness would be very surprisingly even low, not only among those who are not literate, but those who are actually educated. So I think that is a challenge which a lot of the industry, financial industry today is trying to resolve through a lot of investment education awareness within financial instruments. There are various instruments today that people still don't understand. Today, the demat account has reached more than 1 crore. But even today, if somebody asks you to open a demat account, which you can open in less than 3 minutes, people think, oh God, you means I have to open a demat account, means I'm going to get into stocks and shares, and which is going to be, my money, I'm going to burn my hand. Or I'm going to turn 10 rupees into a lakh. That's the way people kind of think. Simple things like I said, I know I'm talking about the venture that I really strongly stand for, which is, exchange traded funds. And I've been a very, very strong advocate for passive investing, which is basically, where you invest in a basket of stocks instead of going individually into stocks. Now, how many of the people really understand that, right? So I think that is the kind of, education and awareness that plagues not only, I think, the financial community, but I would say even MSMEs have that thing. I mean, from what I'm hearing from you all, I think a lot of the MSCs don't understand their own resources that they have. Absolutely. How can they go out there and talk about their businesses, right? Today, social media platforms have become so big. Our MSMEs using that platform and going big and saying that this is the industry I have. Nabomita just spoke about, Kolhapur, where people helped each other during COVID times. So many family bakers cropped up. So many people started creating gift items for each other. But how did that gain prominence? How did so many people create small industries? They went all out in social media, and it's happening with the newer generation who's doing it. So if the newer generation can do it, why can't the MSMEs start going loud and, start creating that awareness?
Great. Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because it tells us that awareness is awareness is a huge issue. And there's no simple answer. I think it's a combination of getting to the middle path from the MSME perspective. The middle path is a combination of the business owners and the lenders and the private sector banks. So I think we're running out of time. We have time for one more question, but 1 minute per participant. We'll quickly answer this question, but it's a very important question. So basically, Mr. Gadia, start with you. Scalability is a big issue for organizations. A lot of people, there is a resource problem, funds problem. And the biggest problem in MSME is that there are no CXOs. The only CXO that an MSME has is the chief promoter officer. So the chief promoter is actually everything in an MSME organization. And typically what happens is that, every MSME organization is function-led. Either the promoter is a finance person or the promoter is a manufacturing person. So basically what happens, all the other functions get relegated to the background. Yeah. So what do you think, Mr. Gadia, should be the approach? Because this is a big problem, because not having a professional organization is a big problem for a vision to kind of percolate.
When I was studying my MBA days, I was taught in my MBA days that one person can manage 6 persons, and that is why the entire hierarchy which was created. That there was a top management, then there is a middle level, then that is how the triangle used to come up. This is how we used to be taught that way. Nowadays, in a WhatsApp group, if there are 500 people, you can create one WhatsApp group from, from lower level people to the MD. He is part of that WhatsApp group. If the lower level people puts up any problem, within 24 hours, the MD gives an answer, yes or no. So it means that entire middle level is a flap right now, because whatever was the decision making, pehle kya hota tha, problem used to go from top, so from the bottom to the top, and then the answer used to come. I think so, Arijit, the problem that you are saying, it is basically a blessing in disguise for an MSME right now. Right now, because of technology advancement, because of everything, this is where we can say that the small is beautiful, and because of this agility, this MSME is able to survive. One-man army is now back in action. It is no more a taboo. Nowadays, at the present moment, till the time, because of this decision making, because of this criteria, whatever, because this is one man vision everywhere, sir. It is always the one man vision which carries the entire organization. It is the one man leadership which carries the entire thing. I think so. At the present moment, MSMEs are having the life of they're having a dream run. Let it continue like this. I personally foresee no more a problem of this type of a CXO issues right now.
Okay, that's a fair perspective. Nirupama, I wanted to talk to you about a similar related to this. So we talk about empowerment through funding, empowerment through finance. So we were discussing that empowerment also needs to happen through technology, through access to financial tools, through access to the right kind of people, professional resources. So what is your, what should be the approach for MSME organizations?
Okay, so I think when you're looking at it from an empowerment point of view, quite frankly, access to information, of course, and somewhere it keeps circling back to awareness, but but with awareness, it's a point to go further on, because that's where the information and that awareness is what is going to actually create that empowerment. See, awareness is not going to come just from the government, and it's not going to come from the MSME per se. There is a whole lot of in between. So the roles of banks, the roles of other agencies that interact are who are responsible for that. And the biggest awareness actually comes from word of mouth, more than anything else. You see, UPI was a success not because the government went, literally shop to shop saying, aap use karo, aap use karo, aap use karo. Somewhere the benefit of it was realized because one person saw somebody else using it, they realized the benefit, they went. So curiosity and utility, that's the empowerment. When anybody, any business, however small, however big, when they see a utility of a particular initiative, whether it is a business solution, or whether it is a government initiative, or whether it's a policy reform, if the utility can be realized, felt and seen, that in itself is empowering enough for any MSME business to take up, to make an effort to become aware of it, to educate themselves, because there is a return on that. If they do not see an immediate return on acquiring a certain knowledge, why bother? Because they have 100 other things to bother about. So I think even during messaging, in terms of what we want them to know, in terms of awareness, the link to the utility of this has to be explained. That if you do this, these are the gains you'll see. So I think that connect.
Interesting.
And that is what I think will lead to empowerment as well.
Excellent. Mr. Aggarwal, just wanted to ask you, various countries have brought into place very interesting models. Like, for instance, Morocco had this model called the Model Factory. They created Model Factory. They trained about 700 people. Singapore has something like that. Do you think that in India, we have technology centers, tooling tools, but something like the Model Factories, which can be put together by NBFCs, private sector banks, private players, getting together to create facilitation centers? Do you think there is a role for this?
Oh, certainly, but of course, see, look at the technology side. We have this concept of accelerators being, run around the country, and unfortunately, the regulator of the day is even more open to it, coming with a regulatory sandbox. So you're living in an era of a sandbox regulation versus an accelerator model. So it talks a huge value about this. But one point I would like to certainly make, I think, the discussion which we've had now, and it also relates to this. I think somewhere down the line, just as we have concept of too big to fail, I think many of the MSMEs suffer from the dilemma of too small to succeed.
Very good.
I think usse bahar nikalna hoga. Trust yourself. When you talked about CXOs, I think these are functions created out of the need and requirement. Did we ever hear of a CTO or CIO or a so many CX? That's why X came in, because bahut sare ho gaye. So now, are these all required for a small entity, as Mr. Gadia said? The person who's running the show, who knows? Usko pata hai kya karna hai. So let's not, burden him ki boss tumhe CFO rakhna hai, tumhe CTO rakhna hai. Poor chap, मर जाएगा वो.
धंधा चलना चाहिए.
Yes. So I think let's learn to be confident, trust yourself, you are excellent. If you are doing a job, a business, you are making profit, I think you are excellent. You are sufficient.
So just wanted to check with you in terms of your experience in working with the micro segment. What do you think are some of the steps that can be taken by the government or the lenders to bring them into the fold and help them create enduring and stable businesses?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, micro. Let me take the thread from him. What he said is extremely inspiring, right? We completely, to Arijit's point, yes, we completely believe that MSME should get a very professional format for functioning to be able to scale up exactly the way B schools make you think. I definitely think like that. A friend of mine who had worked in different MNCs at different CXO level started the plug and play model of CFO, CMO. We tried running that model with certain MSMEs that we know, including micro, because we believe that everybody deserves a very, very functional and very professional approach. Well, on the face of us, they were not exactly giving us a feedback, but then later they said that, well, the same ivory tower problem, they might not really understand what we go through. So if somebody, obviously the person will listen to what I am saying because they believe I am from one of their community, but if somebody else is coming with a very professional format, was initially rejected, but then we worked it out. And to his point, all these X was added to C because there were so many functions that were created. One of them, on a lighter note, is Chief Entertainment Officer, and we saw how it worked because that was Elon Musk to Twitter. But then, coming back to the point for my micro segment, for them to succeed, yes, they only need one thing, and that is connecting their burning need to a supplier who can get them the money in exchange of what they are producing. That's the only need they have. With all our degrees and MBAs and whatever we can create, that's the only thing as a platform we are doing, that's the only thing that we are working for. Is it helping? Yes, to a greater extent. No, because the scale is too big to match. No matter whatever we do, we wake up next day morning realizing that, okay, 90% of the work is still left. And last night we thought we have done it 100%. So irrespective of how we approach the process, what exactly will be the best fit, I should be honest, as a business owner, you should tell me, not I should be telling you. But yes, as a platform, we continue to work, we continue to connect, and we hope that will be the solution.
Great, thanks. So Koel, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the crucial support systems that you think you worked in different kinds of organizations, large organizations, and currently you're working with a bootstrap startup organization? What do you think are the support systems that you would seek in an organization which is not so big, in an organization slightly, small?
I think, given what we all discussed, and to sum it up in a very short way, given that we are running out of time, I think you use the word empowerment. And I think that is what you need to do. I think what, Mr. Prakash also said was, there should not be somebody like a CX or CMO. It doesn't work. In larger organizations, you do. But, what is happening right now is, I think, a tagline called "People's First" is coming up, right? So put your people first, empower them to be able to, run with your ideas. Yes, the one-man army works because you need one man to drive the main mission and put forth what you want to drive in a system, in an organization, and even in a startup. But even I've been in a bigger organization where you needed those CMOs because of the size of the organization, right? You need to manage that workforce and to be able to integrate each of them into that part of the mission that you want them to drive. But when you're looking at smaller outfits, like in this startup itself, we had an experience of somebody who wanted to, who came from that background, who wanted like a CMO kind of a feel. It didn't work. So I think that's what you do. What works is you tell the people that this is what our mission is. You will see how strongly people, feel the responsibility. If you kind of give them the confidence that I believe in you, make the first mistake, don't repeat the same mistake. But I believe that you guys can do it. This is what I want to drive. Look at the kind of ideas that they will start coming out with it. So I think it's people first and empower the teams who are working, because that's what's going to give you, the success and support.
Excellent. So great. It was a lovely time we had discussing various issues, right from HR to funding to kind of people to the CXOs. Hope you enjoyed the conversation too. Thank you, everybody. Once again, thank you, Business World, Devika and Anurag, for bringing us together. We had a great time having this discussion. Thank you.